My wife sued me for emotional abuse after I caught her with my brother. Then the judge saw the security footage. The moment I opened my bedroom door that Tuesday afternoon, my entire world shattered into 1,000 pieces. There was Sarah, my wife of 6 years, tangled in our sheets with Kyle, my own brother. Not a stranger, not some random guy from a bar, my brother, the man who was my best man at our wedding. The recordings from our security cameras told an even darker story. 40 hours of betrayal, spanning months. That wasn't the worst part. When I filed for divorce, Sarah struck first with a lawsuit claiming I was abusive and controlling. And my own parents, my flesh and blood, sided with her. Let me back up and explain how I ended up in this nightmare. Sarah and I had been together for 9 years total. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue when I was 26 and she was 24. She was everything I thought I wanted. Smart, beautiful, ambitious. We dated for 3 years before I proposed, and honestly, those early years were good. Really good. Or at least, I thought they were. I work in tech sales, making around $120,000 a year. Sarah worked in marketing at a mid-sized firm, pulling in about $70,000. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. We bought a nice 3-bedroom house in the suburbs, took annual vacations, and talked about starting a family. The white picket fence dream, you know? Kyle was 2 years younger than me. He'd always been the golden child, valedictorian, full ride to college, law school, the whole 9 yards. He became a family law attorney, which is ironic as hell considering what happened. My parents worshipped him. Every family dinner was about Kyle's latest case or achievement. I'll admit there was always some sibling rivalry there, but I loved my brother. I trusted him completely. About 18 months before everything exploded, I noticed Sarah getting distant. She was always on her phone, started working late more often, seemed irritated whenever I tried to plan date nights. Classic signs, right? But I ignored them. I told myself she was stressed about work, that every marriage had rough patches. I suggested couples therapy. She refused. I planned a surprise weekend getaway. She canceled last minute for a work emergency. I tried everything to reconnect with her, but she kept pulling away. Meanwhile, Kyle was coming around more often. He'd drop by for dinner, invite himself to our Sunday family gatherings, offer to help Sarah with some supposed legal advice about some issue at her job. I should have seen it. All the signs were there, but you don't want to believe that the two people closest to you could do something so vile. Then came that Tuesday. I'd left for a client meeting that was supposed to last all day, but the client rescheduled at the last minute. I headed home around 2 in the afternoon. Kyle's car was in our driveway. I figured he'd stop by to see if I wanted to grab lunch or something. I walked into my house, called out a greeting. No response. I heard sounds from upstairs, our bedroom. My stomach dropped. I took the stairs 2 at a time, pushed open the door, and there they were. The betrayal on their faces when they saw me was almost comical. Almost. I didn't yell, I didn't throw punches, I just stood there, feeling like someone had reached into my chest and ripped out my heart. Sarah started crying, stammering excuses. Kyle couldn't even look at me. I turned around, walked out, got in my car, and drove. I don't even remember where I went. I just drove for hours. When I finally came home that night, Sarah was gone. She'd packed a bag and left. No note, nothing. She went to stay with my parents. Yes, you read that right. My parents took her in. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I called my parents demanding to know why they were housing the woman who just destroyed their son. My mother actually said, "Sarah's going through a difficult time and she needs support." I lost it. I told them exactly what I'd walked in on. My dad's response was, "There are 2 sides to every story." That's when I knew I needed to protect myself legally. I contacted a divorce attorney named Marcus Reynolds, a bulldog with a stellar reputation. He was expensive, charging $350 an hour, but worth every penny as it turned out. During my first meeting with Marcus, I remembered something crucial. We had security cameras. I'd installed them about a year earlier after there'd been some break-ins in our neighborhood. We had cameras covering the front door, back door, living room, and, here's the kicker, one in our bedroom. It was mounted discreetly on the bookshelf, originally meant to catch any intruders who made it that far into the house. Sarah knew about the cameras. We'd discussed them when I installed them, but I guess she either forgot about the bedroom one or thought I wouldn't check the footage. I was wrong about that 40 hours estimate initially. Marcus and I sat down with our IT guy and went through everything. The affair had been going on for 7 months. 7 months of Kyle coming over whenever I was at work or away on business trips. 7 months of them laughing, eating meals together, using my home like their personal secret hideaway. The footage was damning. Time-stamped, clear as day, absolutely irrefutable. I thought I'd file for divorce, split our assets, and move on with my shattered life. But Sarah had other plans. 2 weeks after I moved out and stayed with a friend, I was served with a lawsuit. Not divorce papers, a civil lawsuit. Sarah was suing me for $200,000 in emotional damages, claiming I'd been emotionally abusive, controlling, and manipulative throughout our marriage. The filing painted me as a monster who monitored her every move, isolated her from friends and family, and made her life miserable. It was all lies, complete fabrication. But she had my parents ready to testify on her behalf. She had journal entries documenting my supposed abuse. She had a whole narrative built up. When Marcus showed me the lawsuit, I actually laughed. It was so absurd. But he didn't laugh. He explained that even frivolous lawsuits can be dangerous, especially in family court where things can get murky. He told me we needed to mount a serious defense. Here's where it gets even twisted. Kyle was representing her. My brother, the family law attorney, was taking my wife's case against me. The conflict of interest was staggering, but apparently in our state, as long as both parties consent and there's no direct representation conflict, it was technically allowed. Sarah had consented to Kyle representing her despite their relationship. It was sleazy as hell, but legal. The lawsuit claimed I'd forced Sarah to quit jobs she loved, that I monitored her phone and computer, that I isolated her from her friends, that I threatened her when she tried to leave. Every single claim was a lie. I'd never done any of those things. If anything, I'd encouraged her career, been supportive when she wanted to switch jobs or go back to school for her MBA. But here's the thing about lies in court. They can be convincing if no one can prove otherwise. And Sarah was betting that I couldn't prove a negative. How do you prove you didn't do something? That's where the security footage became nuclear. Marcus filed a countersuit on my behalf, claiming fraud, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and alienation of affection based on the affair. We requested a jury trial initially, but then switched to a bench trial, just a judge, because Marcus felt the evidence was so cut and dry that we didn't need to risk a jury being swayed by emotion. The trial took 3 days. Sarah's side went first. She took the stand, tears streaming down her face, describing this nightmare marriage where I supposedly controlled every aspect of her life. She claimed I checked her phone daily, demanded to know where she was at all times, and flew into rages if dinner wasn't ready when I got home. My mother testified next. My own mother sat on that stand and said I'd always been intense and controlling, even as a child. She said Sarah had confided in her about my behavior, that she'd seen bruises on Sarah's arms. Bruises that didn't exist, by the way. There wasn't a single medical record, photo, or any evidence of these phantom bruises. My father corroborated my mother's testimony. He said I'd always been jealous of Kyle's success, that I'd been difficult and angry my whole life. He painted me as some kind of unstable person who'd been a problem child. It was devastating to sit there and listen to my parents betray me like that. These were the people who raised me, who were supposed to love me unconditionally. And they were lying under oath to protect my wife and brother. Sarah's friends testified too. They claimed they'd seen warning signs of my controlling nature. One of them said I'd gotten angry at a dinner party once when Sarah talked to another man. That actually happened, but what really occurred was that a drunk guy at the party kept hitting on Sarah aggressively, and I'd politely asked him to back off. Somehow that became evidence of my jealous, controlling behavior. Kyle was smooth on cross-examination, making everything sound sinister. When my friends testified about our normal, happy marriage, Kyle twisted their words. When they said I was involved in Sarah's life, he made it sound like surveillance. When they mentioned I sometimes surprised her at work with lunch, he framed it as checking up on her. Then came day 2, and it was our turn. Marcus started by entering the security footage into evidence. All 47 hours of it. We'd found even more after that initial review. Kyle objected, claiming it was obtained without Sarah's consent and violated her privacy. But the judge shut that down immediately. Sarah had known about the cameras, and they were in our shared marital home. The footage was admissible. Marcus played a compilation he'd prepared. It showed Sarah and Kyle entering our home together dozens of times. It showed them being intimate in our living room, our bedroom, our kitchen. The timestamps showed this happening while I was at work, while I was traveling for business. Even once while I was at my mother's birthday dinner, a dinner Kyle had skipped claiming he had to work late. But more importantly, Marcus played footage from the days and weeks where I was home. He showed me cooking dinner, cleaning, doing laundry. He showed Sarah and me watching television together, laughing, acting like a normal couple. There was no monitoring, no controlling behavior, no rage. Just a normal marriage that I thought was solid while my wife was having an affair. The footage destroyed Sarah's narrative completely. You could see it on her face as it played, the realization that her entire case was falling apart. Marcus then called their IT expert, who testified about the metadata, the timestamps, the authenticity of the footage. Everything was verified as unaltered and genuine. I took the stand next. I kept my composure, answered every question honestly. I admitted our marriage had problems toward the end, that Sarah had grown distant, but I denied every single allegation of abuse or control. I provided bank statements showing Sarah had her own accounts I never accessed. I showed phone records proving I never monitored her calls. I presented emails and texts showing me encouraging her career moves and social activities. Kyle's cross-examination was brutal, but I stuck to the truth. He tried to rattle me, to make me seem angry or unstable. He failed. Marcus had prepped me well. The final day was closing arguments. Kyle went first, trying to salvage the case. He claimed the affair happened because Sarah was so desperate to escape my control that she sought comfort elsewhere. He argued that my surveillance system in our home proved I was obsessed with monitoring her. He asked for the full $200,000 in damages. Marcus's closing was surgical. He walked through each of Sarah's claims and showed how the evidence contradicted every single one. He pointed out that Kyle had a massive conflict of interest representing his affair partner against his own brother. He highlighted my parents' clearly biased testimony, and he asked the judge to award us $75,000 in our countersuit for the emotional distress, fraud, and the affair itself. The judge took less than 30 minutes to deliberate. When she came back, she looked angry. She denied Sarah's lawsuit in its entirety. Every single claim was dismissed. Then she turned to our countersuit and awarded us the full $75,000. But she didn't stop there. Judge Morrison, I'll never forget her name, spent 10 minutes dressing down Sarah and Kyle from the bench. She said it was one of the most egregious cases of perjury and abuse of the legal system she'd seen in 20 years on the bench. She said Sarah had weaponized serious allegations of abuse, potentially making it harder for real victims to be believed. She called Kyle's decision to represent Sarah professionally reckless and said she was forwarding her findings to the State Bar Association for review. She ordered Sarah to pay my legal fees, another $45,000 Marcus had racked up fighting this thing. And she granted me a divorce on my terms, including keeping the house and most of our shared assets, since Sarah had committed fraud and adultery. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I just felt empty. The aftermath has been complicated. Sarah lost her job 2 weeks after the trial. Word got around fast about what happened, and her company didn't want the liability. Last I heard, she's working retail and living in a tiny apartment on the bad side of town. She sent me dozens of messages begging for forgiveness, claiming she never meant for things to go so far, that she was confused and made mistakes. I've blocked her on everything. Kyle did lose his law license. The Bar Association suspended him indefinitely pending a full ethics investigation. Even if he gets it back eventually, his reputation is destroyed. He's also been sending apology messages, trying to explain that he fell in love with Sarah and couldn't help himself. I haven't responded to any of them. My parents tried to reconcile about 3 months after the trial. They showed up at my house unannounced, crying, saying they'd made a terrible mistake. They claimed Sarah had manipulated them, that they didn't realize how serious the situation was, that they never should have doubted me. I listened to everything they had to say, then I closed the door in their faces. I haven't spoken to them since. Here's the thing about betrayal at this level. You can't come back from it. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. Sarah didn't just cheat on me. She tried to destroy my reputation, my finances, my life. She lied under oath and tried to paint me as an abuser. Kyle didn't just sleep with my wife. He used his legal training to try to ruin me in court. And my parents didn't just take her side. They testified against their own son, called me controlling and violent, backed lies they had to know were false. I'm 35 years old, and I've lost my wife, my brother, and my parents. The house feels empty. The money from the lawsuit barely covers the emotional damage. I've been in therapy twice a week trying to process everything. My therapist says I have trust issues now. No kidding. I've thought about dating again, but the idea terrifies me. How do I trust someone after this? How do I let someone into my life knowing what people are capable of? My friends try to set me up, tell me I need to move on, but I'm not ready. Maybe I never will be. The worst part is the what-ifs. What if I'd come home an hour later that day? What if I'd never checked the security footage? What if I'd just accepted the divorce quietly and moved on? Would Sarah have gotten away with her lawsuit? Would I be the one paying her money while everyone believed I was an abuser? The thought keeps me up at night. Sometimes I wonder if I should have just let it all go, taken the high road, accepted the divorce, and walked away without the legal battle. But then I remember Sarah on that stand, lying through her teeth, trying to destroy me. I remember Kyle twisting my words and my life into something unrecognizable. I remember my parents choosing them over me. And I know I made the right choice fighting back. The money sitting in my account, $75,000. Blood money, essentially. I haven't touched it. I don't know if I ever will. It feels dirty somehow, like accepting it means admitting this really happened, that this is really my life now. I did everything right in that courtroom. I had the evidence, the truth, the better attorney. I won. But victory doesn't feel the way I thought it would. There's no satisfaction in proving your wife is a liar and your brother is a betrayer. There's no joy in watching your parents realize they destroyed their relationship with their son for nothing. There's just this hollow ache where my family used to be. So, yeah, I won the case. I got my justice. I got my revenge, if you want to call it that. But I lost everything that mattered in the process. Some days, I'm not sure which side really won after all. Write what you think about this situation. Also, if you like this video, give a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on the bell to receive notifications about the latest videos. See you next time. Bye-bye.